Hello traders, my morning video. Have a happy Friday here. End of the week. The markets are kind of like in a wait and see mode ahead of the weekend events with the G20 down in down in Argentina. So basically, the volumes are extremely light this morning. Extremely. So trying to press any direction this morning is until we start seeing the ticks come in. I think it's going to be very difficult to find any trending stocks this morning. So be quite careful here. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and we've got 250,000 shares on the SPY. That's not that's really weak for a day. So just keep that in mind, and it looks like we're going to have a really quiet open to the markets and probably most of the day. So if you ever wanted to go out fishing, today's probably the day to go fishing. So I'll give you some of the stuff that I'm looking at here, and then you guys can go from there. Wait 1 second here. Broadcom, there was news out this morning in a report lowering guidance on Broadcom. Well, negative comments, let's put it that way. There wasn't actually any targets. Basically, they saw the General Motors shutting down the plants as a negative for Broadcom's demand for their products, because they do sell a lot of products towards the automobile industry. And they were putting a negative note on Broadcom. And of course, it's the only long position I have for the overnight. So we'll see how bad it opens here in a few hours and go from there. Goldman Sachs is taking it on the chin this morning. There was news out that the SEC is intensifying their investigation against Goldman Sachs on allegations of corruption and potential fraud. I guess some of the former employees stole a bunch of money somewhere, and they are really... So basically, Goldman Sachs is probably going to be on the hook for this news. But anyway, it's coming down here to... we broke out of a trend line resistance here on the daily, and we're coming back down in below that right now. Yeah, see this little wedge pattern we had going on here? Yeah, we're breaking down back below this wedge pattern on Goldman Sachs, suggesting a continuation pattern to the downside today. Okay. Some of the high flyers are coming in a little bit this morning. The indices are pulling back in a little bit. They got a little overheated yesterday afternoon, and like I had mentioned in some of my charts, the SPY had actually hit the 61.8% retrace, and as soon as it did that, it started coming back off, and we have a continuation of that pullback this morning. So, but like I said, the volume is quite anemic for coming off of that, so there's not significant selling pressure here. Okay, and we're here at the weekly value area high right here on Apple. We'll see if they have a continuation here. And important to note, these yesterday's lows, this area right here is a very low volume node. And if we were to get some selling pressure, we can fly through that very quickly. So there is quite a bit of risk that Apple's going to be coming down to the, down here to the, well, basically all the way down here to the 175.90 area. There is a potential for that if selling pressure does intensify today. So just keep that in mind. A lot of these charts are trading right above the POW, what I call a POW gap, because you virtually have no volume support on this gap area where Powell came out and he basically said a more dovish tone on interest rates, and immediately the algos kicked in, the computers started buying, and there was no time. I mean, just in a matter of seconds, the price of all the markets totally lifted up with very price volume supporting the move. So just keep that in mind. It could be a very dangerous situation for the markets today if a lot of these chart patterns start breaking down inside of that Powell gap area. Okay. Boeing was on fire yesterday. I mean, outright on fire. It looks to me like it overshot a little bit, and there's a decent chance we're going to come back in today. It has really blown through a lot of critical, got itself overextended, and if the markets do come in, I can see Boeing will be one of the leaders to the downside to reset because it went up so fast. So just keep this one on if you guys are thinking about a short candidate. And it's way away from that Powell gap thing right now. I don't think there's any chance of that. The Powell gap's way down here. I mean, yeah, just look since the Powell gap here. It basically, once the news came out, it was $3.30 a share, and boom, $12 more. So coming back in, it just makes sense that Boeing will come back in a little bit here. And so I'm thinking we're probably going to come back down to the 336, 337 area pretty fast here. And maybe hold out right through here during the course of the day. Okay? And then Tesla. Tesla is another chart pattern. We have this, I know it's basically a head and shoulders pattern. This is the right here. Let's see if I can get this on the hourly so you can see it. Yeah, there we go. And basically you got right here. Ah, darn it. Never fails. There we go. Basically, it's a little mini head and shoulders pattern going on here. And we're coming back down to this trend line support area. So if we start seeing some responsive selling down below this trend line area, I can see a continuation to the downside if the markets cannot catch a bid today. So that's one of my favorite short setups for today if it were to work out. Okay. Now, on the long side, if this market were to catch a bid, it really Facebook's a little extended here from yesterday, and we are trading right below this trend line here at the open, just right below it right now. But on the pre-market, so but yeah, we do have a significant trend line here that Facebook could be crossing over here, and this is a very strong responsive buy zone for Facebook if the markets were to catch a bid. So this is one of my favorite long setups if markets do hold out and not start selling off today. Netflix was one of the strongest stocks in the markets yesterday, and when the pulled back, it didn't pull back anything going into the close yesterday. We're seeing a little bit of responsive selling this morning, but if the markets do manage to hold up, this is not one that I would suggest shorting. So we'll keep an eye on Netflix here. I do think it's a continuation pattern if the markets were to catch a bid today. So like I said, I think there's a lot of posturing going to be going on today, and you're probably going to see a lot of put action. People loading up for protection going into the weekend. I know personally, I'm going to get some straddles. I'm not even going to try to do a directional trade with all the geopolitical risk. And I do think we're going to have a huge move next week. And my gut says we're going to the upside. But, I have got very good reason to think it could go either way. So it's just better for me just to buy a straddle and sacrifice the one side just for a bigger move. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for next week. Another thing I wanted to point out, as of yesterday, our skew, that's the number of out of the money calls versus your out of the money puts. Our skew, they we actually hit a new low yesterday on the skew, and that's even going to likely be even a lower low today, preparing for the weekend. And we are at an extreme. And like I had mentioned in my prior videos, we are coming off the biggest move in skew ever in market history. So, this is why I'm very hesitant to really push the put side in the markets, knowing that everybody and their brothers loaded up to the put side going into this weekend event. And it just takes a whisper of good news to cause the shorts to get squeezed all to pieces going into next week. And if the skew hadn't have been this negative, I would probably be taking puts, for the whole weekend events with China. But knowing that so many people are already loaded up on that trade, it's a crowded trade. And you never want to be in the midst of a crowded trade whenever a significant news event's coming out. So that's why I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go with the straddle just to be safe. Our VIX is still holding up here going into the big event. It came in. I mean, even after Powell had his little speech, look how little the VIX came in after his speech. And immediately, we're right back up. And we're just not getting any fall off on this volatility index. But I think that next week, if it happens the way I think it's going to happen, I think we're going to have a massive rally in the markets, and the VIX is finally going to start dropping like a rock. And in that case, we're actually going to get the squeeze that a lot of traders have been waiting and hoping for. But we'll see what happens. That's all you can do. I mean, just keep that in mind, that what the VIX is doing right here, it's still very elevated, despite the fact we've had a nice little uptick in the markets. Now, the trend on the 3-month, the VXX, it's more of a 3-month volatility index. It's a little bit weaker on our fib fans. It's further down the range in the fib zones. But it's still holding out real high here, even 3 months out on the volatility index. This is the one I think is going to drop like a rock as soon as they get the news events out of the way, and we can start getting back to normal market operations. As I'm telling you right now, with some of these earnings coming out, like Workday that came out last night, it blew numbers away. Quite frankly, Workday is going to be one of the new FANG names, in my opinion. It's amazing how powerful Workday is. And people don't talk about it too much, but yeah, it's a competitor to Salesforce.com type thing. And boy, they just absolutely blew the numbers out, blew them away last night. So that's why it is quite difficult to add additional shorts at this level when you have companies putting up numbers that strong. Okay, so just keep that in mind for your day ahead here. Pushing shorts, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tough. Okay. And then I wanted to mention the VXN. That's the volatility index for the NASDAQ. And it's showing more relative weakness versus the S&P. So just keep that in mind. There's more strength coming into the tech space, and that's exactly what we want to see. We want to see more strength coming into the tech space versus the other markets to signify that we are finding risk buying coming back into the markets. This is another tell to me to see that the volatility index is coming down faster on the NASDAQ going into the big event this weekend. Still another bullish sign, which I personally think is going to happen. But like I said, I try not to take on something like this. I try not to take a bias. Just put a trade on there you're pretty sure it's going to work and it's going to have the best odds of success. And that's why I say the straddle's probably the best and most logical approach to the weekend. Another important chart I wanted to point out to you guys, and that's your energy space, your XLE. We're coming off of a significant low area, and we crossed over the trend line yesterday. So the target would be 67.36 area. That's its last swing high on your energy stocks for a short-term squeeze. So this, to me, is one of the areas that the more bullish areas that I would want to be in going into next week. If you didn't want to do a straddle, if you just wanted to go like calls, I would go into the energy space, in my opinion, for next week for that trade. And then one other thing, SLX, I was looking at, and that's your steel sector. It just absolutely has gotten destroyed here. And we had this, it's come right back up to this downward trend line here. And it just kind of hanging out right here right now. But you see the real small profile on the volume profile. So this is primed for a short squeeze in our steel space. And so just keep this one in mind that if monies do come into the markets next week, I think one of the hottest sectors will be in your steel stocks like U.S. Steel. So you may want to take some small positions to the long side in some of the steel names if you're bullish on the markets next week. Okay. Please leave comments below. Like the video if you like it. I do want to hear back what's really piquing your interest. XHB. One last thing. XHB. That's your home builders. And it's starting to really, we got right here a double top formation, okay? And so it's kind of like a cup and handle. So just keep this in mind here that we might have a bottom in our home builders here, and we might start lifting off here in the home builders. Now, we do have a lot of volume built out down here, but so if the home builders start to break out here, they can pop pretty quick here, so just keep that in mind, okay? Okay, I will see you guys trading today.